Barbara Anderson is the Executive Director of Art on the Ave NYC, a community-based nonprofit organization founded by school teachers in the summer of 2020, dedicated to the elevation of local artists and the revitalization of neighborhoods. Art on the Ave uses both vacant storefronts and existing businesses to create street-facing exhibits for all to enjoy. Thank you so much, Barbara Anderson, for joining me here on AwareNow to share this space and share your story. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So happy to be here. Thank you.
So for those unaware of Art on the Ave NYC, Barbara, what is it?
Art on the Ave NYC it's a community-based organization. I don't say that lightly. Community is very important in that. We support local artists, and we do that by transforming vacant retail spaces into street-facing art galleries. And in doing so, we promote and increase access to art for everybody. So essentially, that's what it is.
Well, it's a beautiful concept, and serving so many in so many different ways. So I guess I'd like to begin with what inspired you and your fellow school teachers to establish Art on the Ave, and how has the organization evolved since its inception back in the summer of 2020?
Okay, so obviously, as with many other organizations that were founded during COVID, I would say that COVID inspired Art on the Ave NYC, but not just COVID. It was also the spring where we saw all the Black Lives Matter protests. We were in our classrooms, and then from one day to the next, we were not in those classrooms anymore. We were in our living rooms, and we were having to deal as social studies teachers, English teachers, in trying to communicate with our students. In my case, it was middle school students. My daughter was working with high school at the time. We were, dealing with all of these issues and questions and how to approach them in a way that was sensitive to their ages, to what they were going through in the different cities that they were living in, because at this point, a lot of our students had dispersed. My daughter lives in a different country, so the art is always a way that you can start a conversation. And I think that really resonated during that time. I was looking at a lot of photographs. We were analyzing a lot of photographs, and it seemed like a great way to have discussions about, things that people were going through, whether it was, wearing masks, and that was a debate, or whether it was, what happened to George Floyd, and what are we protesting, and how do we protest, and all of these things. It seemed that art was a good way to start difficult conversations. So that was in our mind. I was a very happy school teacher and always have been a very happy school teacher. So I certainly wasn't looking for a huge project to start. But staying here in New York and then seeing the city completely clear out, at least certain neighborhoods cleared out. Other neighborhoods don't have the capacity to clear out. And so to me, what really resonated and what really struck me was the fact that the people who stayed and the people who were making a huge impact and difference were artists. When you went out on the streets and you saw a store that was boarded up, the store was boarded up to protect merchandise and to protect windows. And that board didn't say anything except, this is bad, this is terrible, get away. And the artists painted on those boards all around the city. And to me, that was powerful because, you know what? There was a message there now. And it just really struck me that art does have that impact and it does have that power to communicate a message. And you can stand there and you can think about the message and walk away, consider maybe it'll come back to you a week later. You can walk by it. It's your choice. But at least there was something there. And it was the artists who did that. And it was artists who probably don't go to don't have gallery representations, who aren't in galleries. Those artists kind of cleared out too. So the galleries were closed. There was not much for them to do in New York, but street artists were here, and artists who just, said, okay, well, anything can be a canvas, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to tell a story out there on the streets. That was a big factor in my wanting to do something helpful through art.
Could you share some examples, Barbara, of how art on the Ave is positively impacted not just local artists, but the communities where these pieces are exhibited?
Right. Well, from that very first exhibition during COVID, the impact was it was immediate. It was before we even had any art in the windows. Just the idea that someone was going to try to do something, I think, really struck people, and it captured their imaginations. And so the calls that we got from members of the community saying, we love it, whatever happens, we want to try to help. We had groups of people who said, we're going to help, we're going to go and get the non-vacant stores, the businesses that are still operating, to show art too. Let us do that for you. And so they went off and they contributed in that way. We had people reach out and say, hey, we heard that you want to record the artist statements. How are you going to do that? Well, as teachers, we had mastered Zoom, so we thought we'll just do it on Zoom, or we'll just do it through their phones. They said, no, we do podcasts. We're going to do that for you. So all kinds of people came forward and said, let me help. From restaurants, we're going to offer hot chocolate. It was November. Anyone who's doing a walk and takes a picture of the art will get a hot chocolate. Everybody that was the first one, but that continued. And right up to now, where we actually have an exhibition up. Sorry about the sirens. Can you hear?
Oh yeah, I can. Life is life. We go on.
Life is life. Okay. So we have people up in Inwood who are constantly coming by and saying, thank you for putting this here. Thank you. We don't have enough art that we can see like this at the street level. We are really appreciative. We had one young man, a gentleman actually, who said to us that his teenage son had come home and said, and I remember this story because I saw that 14-year-old looking at the art. And the grandfather came back and he said, my son said, I thought I lived in the bad part of the neighborhood, but then I saw the art and we don't. And so that makes us really happy. But people are just coming. We have daycares coming in, just taking a walk around the neighborhood, and they come in and see art. That's a beautiful thing. So it's just that idea that, not everybody has to be a collector that goes to Chelsea to go to the galleries on Thursday. That's wonderful. But there are people who are walking on the street that don't know they're collectors. It just never even crossed their mind that they might be, but they stand in front of a piece and it speaks to them, and then they see it again the next day. And so, they eventually say, oh, I'm really impacted by this. I want to have it for myself. So that's one of, the many wonderful things that we do. And we bring art, we bring kids, we do workshops, we do all kinds of things.
And you do them very well, it sounds like. Well, let's talk about the fact that utilizing vacant storefronts and existing businesses for street-facing exhibitions. Super unique approach. My question now is, what challenges did you face in implementing all of this, and what have been some of the most rewarding outcomes for you?
Oh, well, the big challenge always is convincing the property owner to let us use the space. We are not asking to lease the space. We sign a licensing agreement, which is very different. We give them all the positives. If the space rents 2 weeks into an exhibition, we remove the art immediately. So we know all the right things to say, and we know that it's a win-win situation for them, for us, for the artists, for the community. There's really no reason to say no. And people say, well, why do they say no? They say no because anything new is a hassle. Anything that has not been done before is an annoyance, or I just don't want to deal with it. So the biggest challenge is to get the space, even though the space is there, and there is an abundance of it there. So that's the biggest challenge. Another challenge is, funding. Funding for every nonprofit is a huge challenge, and I will not deny that I am not the best. I can do the project. I'm not the best fundraiser. I work largely alone. I have a great group of vendors, and the artists are fantastic. My daughter is great, but she lives in a different country. So I'm often caught in the weeds of a project. I'm not out there fundraising as well as I probably could be. So that's always a challenge, but we're managing, and we are getting, more exhibitions are happening. And what are the positive outcomes? The positive outcomes are many, but one of the best is the biggest challenge being property owners not wanting to give us a space. Well, once they do, then they never want us to take the art away. They want us to do other spaces. They say, well, can you use the space now? Can you stage it for us? So the positive outcome is that from only doing neighborhood exhibitions when we started, we now have a completely separate program of artist residencies in the city with 9 spaces across the city where the owners have actually said, no, that was wonderful. Will you, continue to use the space until it rents? And so we put an artist in the space. Sometimes they work in pairs to keep it as active as we can. And they use it as their studio, as their workshop. And we use it as a space to bring that community in to see art and to do workshops.
I just love this. There's all these wins on all these different levels. In every stage of this process. So let's close this way. Let's close with your words, Barbara. I can sit at home uncertain about the future, or I can try to do something positive. In the uncertain times during COVID, and the uncertain times, the very uncertain times now, why do you feel art is, why was it your something of choice? And why is it such a powerful medium?
I think because art has power. It has the power to make you feel anything. It just has that power, and I think that it shouldn't be a thing of privilege. Like, we talk about education. I really feel like art is everybody's right, and not everybody. I don't feel everybody necessarily has access. I'm not saying everybody needs to become an art collector. I don't think everybody needs to necessarily even be an art appreciator, but it should be there, and it should be easy, because it's universal. Because it's something that has always existed. Those concepts, it's timeless, it's universal. Just put it there and then let people choose whether they want to engage with it or not. But it is powerful because it does make people feel something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And isn't that it? It's that ability to feel something, that it's like instant empathy, right? That you can be in that space, you can be in that place with that piece. And
you can look at a piece and you can have 2 people, and I've watched that, 2 people who don't know each other, who meet on the street and are standing in front of the same piece of art. And those 2 people might have completely opposing views about so many things, but they both chose to stand in front of that piece. And you don't know what's going through their minds, because I'm often standing across the street just trying to get a shot of people looking at art. But when you actually see those 2 people who walked in opposite directions, you don't know what they're thinking, and they're standing in front of a piece and they start a conversation. I love that. And I don't know what's being said, and maybe they're sharing something, and in some way it brings people together.
I wish you could see like the goosebumps on my arm from that example that you shared about the 2 strangers.
I also have to shout out, by the way, I've talked a lot about property owners. I talked about the community. I I haven't talked about the artists. And the artists, people say to me, do you miss the classroom? Because I was very much a passionate teacher. And yes, of course I miss the classroom, but I have this group of artists that I have come to know, and we work with many, many artists. And then there's a core that really, stand out in the sense that they believe in the mission as well, and so they support us, but they also support each other, and they make it all worthwhile every day for those reasons. So Sage is one of them, but there is an entire community of Art on the Ave artists that really come out for each other, and that is also a hugely rewarding thing to be a part of. So I'm really happy about that.
Well, and this goes right back to where we started, how you said it's so important, community, your community of artists, the community who gets to see and view these pieces. Thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing this story, for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.